Welcome to Higher Learning. I am your host, Oz Rashid. This is more than just a podcast. It's a front row seat to how elite leaders build the most iconic of teams. The kind of leaders who spot potential that others overlook, who build cultures people don't want to leave, who set the bar, then raise it. Work and how we work is evolving at a rapid pace like no time in history. Our guests will give you insights on how to stay out in front when it comes to all things talent, leadership, management, artificial intelligence, and developing the skills that actually matter. Whether you're a founder, hiring manager, or just obsessed with building teams the right way, this is your spot. If it's your first time here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, drop a rating, tell a friend who gets it. To our longtime listeners, we appreciate you. Thanks for the continued support. Now, let's get into it. Today, we are joined by a very special guest. We're joined by Deidre Bradley. Deidre is the Vice President of Human Resources at a very large national healthcare organization where she runs HR operations across multiple facilities and over 2,600 employees. She's been doing this at a high level in healthcare for over a decade. Before that, she was the CHRO at Tenet Healthcare, VP of HR at LifePoint Health. And before all that, she cut her teeth in manufacturing, which is about as different from the healthcare and hospital network as you can get. And we're going to talk about that. She also runs her own coaching and consulting firm, DV Coaching and Consulting, and teaches as an adjunct professor at the University of Houston, Clear Lake. She's an SPHR certified executive coach and someone who has seen people side of the business from just about every angle you can see it. In this episode, we're going to get into how Deidre found her way into HR, what it's really like running people operations in healthcare versus manufacturing. And we have a really great conversation about coaching and personal branding, but not the social media kind, the kind that shows up in how you carry yourself every single day. You are not going to want to miss this one. Deidre, how the heck are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. You are located in beautiful Houston, Texas?
Absolutely, yes.
What's your favorite part about Houston, living in Houston?
The weather is amazing. Probably 10 months out of the year, so I don't have the cold and the different elements of snow. And
your timing is very good with this because right now, people won't know this because it'll be about 6 weeks later after the pod actually releases. But there's a huge blizzard hitting the Northeast. I'm in Florida. It's 65 degrees here, but I'm wearing a sweater in solidarity with my friends up in the Northeast, including our New York office. Yes, weather is a very important aspect of quality of life. Is that not true? Great Mexican food in Houston, too.
Oh, yeah. We are number one in diversity in Houston. So we have all kinds of different flavors of food here, and it's amazing.
So in terms of like a bunch of different ethnic cultures and different types of foods and things like that. Okay. Do you have like little Italy and little Japan and little like that? Like are there little areas in the city like that? Or
Well, we have Chinatown or Asian Town. I think they renamed it several years back, but Asian Town, and that's fun to go to. But there's a lot of Vietnamese food, pho.
Love a good pho.
Yeah, very good. And it's such a melting pot here culturally, and I love it. I love the different accents, and it's an amazing place. So I would say I should say diversity over the heat, but
or the weather.
It's great.
Today's episode is sponsored by the Houston Chamber of Commerce. Please travel, visit beautiful Houston, Texas. So Diedre, I'm so excited to have this conversation. You and I have talked a lot about people operations, human resources. I always like to start here. Can you tell us how you got into HR in the first place? What was it something you fell into? Was it something that you knew at a young age you wanted to pursue?
No, I'm a late bloomer to HR. It's actually a second career. The first 10 years out of college, I managed oral surgery practices. And I had a feel for HR in some of those roles, but I wasn't, and I was always fascinated by it, but there just wasn't a lot of openings for entry-level HR folks. So I kind of fell into it in manufacturing, and that was my first bout of HR, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And to this day, I think it is truly my calling and my passion.
What was the first role? What was the entry point?
Yeah, it was an HR representative, and now it would be considered a business partner, I think, or a generalist, probably more so with that. And I did a little bit of everything. It was a unionized facility, so I got exposure to unions, and I had an amazing boss and mentor, and she encouraged me to get my professional certification in HR, and I started with that. And then about 3 years later, I got into healthcare.
I love that. So let's talk about the healthcare aspect, because you were in manufacturing, and we're going to talk about kind of the transition that goes from manufacturing to, say, healthcare. But you've been in healthcare now a decade plus. Is it what you thought it would be going into the industry? And is there a specific reason why you've been in this industry as long as you have that's kept you there?
Yeah, great question. So I had met a gentleman at a hospital. He was in our study group for the PHR, SPHR study group. And I had just gotten my PHR, so I was contributing back and wanted to share with my fellow HR folks about the test and the environment and all of that great stuff. And I met this gentleman, and I just struck up a conversation and ended up getting an interview and got hired in healthcare. And the reason I sought out healthcare, I felt like there was something more that I could contribute to society. And I think healthcare is a very rewarding role for somebody, even that's not a healthcare provider. So that was very interesting to me. And also, the plant that I had worked in was associated with car manufacturing, and some of the parts we made were in Fords and Toyotas. And at that time, there was a downturn in the automotive industry. And I could see the handwriting on the wall, it just wasn't stable. So I took advantage of the position in healthcare. And once I got there, I absolutely just loved it. Fell in love with the way everything works. Um, but I do remember thinking, oh, it's going to be so different, from working with a primarily male dominated industry.
Manufacturing, yeah, people are at the
And
front line. Yep.
yeah, and then I'm going to a mainly female industry, a dominated industry. And so I felt like, oh, it's going to be so much nice. People are going to be nicer because they're caring for patients. And it was
I
it
see.
was different, to say the least, just based on personalities. And healthcare, everything feels like an emergency. And in manufacturing, that's not necessarily the case. And so it was just a very different feel. And there are days that I think I would like to go back to manufacturing a small plant before I retire, but I don't know. I've been in healthcare so long, it's really become, it's just become a passion and a calling, I think.
I love that. So as somebody who has 3 teenage daughters, I could have told you that you probably were going to be walking into something nicer there. I've been there, done that. Can write the book. One thing I want to point out about what you said that I think is really interesting is how you got into healthcare in the first place, right? It was a totally innocuous collision. You're taking your PHR, you meet somebody there. That's how you get connected. And then I think as I think about right now, as a lot of people are on the market looking for work, wondering, what they can do. Of course, there's the standard ways of applying and, doing a situation where, you know a friend of a friend. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is creating a larger luck surface opportunity, right? Putting yourself in positions around other professionals, what's going on, networking, building these relationships, because that's really where the best jobs come from. It's when you weren't expecting it, you bump into it. I mean, they could say the same thing about dating, I guess. You bump into somebody at the grocery store and it turns out to be your future wife or husband or whatever it may be. I think the same thing can happen in careers. And for most people's careers that have taken the most interesting and best turns, it's usually not because they applied for something, but because they knew of somebody. It's not, what you know as much as it is who you know a lot of the time. And that sounds like a very fortuitous thing that happened for you that took you into healthcare. So let's talk about it, right? Like, I mean, yeah, you said manufacturing, you had something in mind when you were going into healthcare. What can you tell us? So like, what surprised you, right? You made a comment earlier about like, it's a completely different persona and profile of the type of people you're working with. What's kind of some of the good and bad or the pros and cons of both of them that maybe you didn't realize going in?
Well, I think I felt like in the manufacturing space, even though it was more male dominated, there was a different level of respect. And it being union, not even necessarily for HR, I just felt like it was a little bit more respectful.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Do
so
you
I
think that was
was
because you were a woman, or do you think that was just because in general they were more respectful about everything?
I don't know. I do feel like I was probably nicer than maybe some other people that were not,
You got the manager on the line yelling at you, how many widgets can you get out, right? I mean, you're
yes,
coming in
right.
and you're
Yeah, I always try to be kind to them. So I don't know if that was part of it, but when I got into healthcare, I quickly learned, and I feel like this may be just something that goes with it. When you have somebody's life in the palm of your hand and somebody's not moving quick enough, you're going to have a different level of communication. And sometimes that does not stop in the patient care setting. So early on in the hospital that I started, it was also unionized. So I was used to unionized facilities, and I wouldn't even say that it was a union non-union thing. I think it was just in healthcare, people are really amped up to deal with an emergency, and they do whatever it takes to get that done. And sometimes they're not always nice about it. And so I feel like that was the biggest thing for me to wrap my head around, thinking, oh, everybody here loves what they do. They are taking care of patients and they're naturally caregivers, when there were, obviously opportunities for them to not necessarily be as kind as they could be in their communication.
Yeah, let me ask this in a little bit of a purposely ambiguous way. In terms of the two different environments, which one has more kind of more the you're dealing in people relations and employee relations a lot, right? In HR, that's kind of the name of the game. I'm not asking you to tell me any detailed stories or anything, but which one had kind of like the more like what the heck type situations, the manufacturing or healthcare?
Oh, by far healthcare. Yeah, by far health.
That's so the things that are getting dropped at your desk on a weekly, monthly basis. Sometimes you're like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, how did this even happen? Type of thing, huh?
Yes, absolutely. It's gonna be healthcare. It's
Perfect for me.
24/7, and there are lots of long stretches of nothing to do, or wait time,
Yeah. What do they say that idle hands are the
yes.
devil's play toy? Right?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Love it. Right, this is amazing. So this is good stuff. Here's the thing. I was watching. My wife and I love to watch a good Dateline, and the one we were watching last night, there was a woman who purposely pursued a role in the pediatric ICU, right? And they were talking about the strength and resolve that goes into having a job like that. Like what you have to be like from an emotionally strength perspective. And I just turned to my wife and I'm like, I can never do that. Like, I mean, God bless like the doctors, the physicians, the nurses, the staff, and the people that knowingly walk into these literally life or death situations where I'm sure you build bonds, you build emotions, and you see things that you wouldn't see anyone else wouldn't want to see on a day-to-day basis. And you just have to have strength and resolve and want to be a part of that. So like I just got a ton of respect for it, and I think it's incredible. It's better people than myself. It wouldn't be for me, and I take my hats off to as a company. We do a lot of work in the healthcare space, and so we support and bring a lot of these people to work. And I'm really grateful to do that. But that's really where I feel like I draw my line, and I say, when it comes to like being with the patients day to day and doing those types of things, God, just a special type of strength, special type of emotional wherewithal.
I agree, and I have such respect for anybody that is dealing with what they're dealing with. When I think of what our leaders in healthcare have to do, they're dealing with patients, they're dealing with physicians, they're dealing with vendors, they're dealing with administration, then a call in, and then you're dealing with somebody's life. And then they'll look at me and say, I don't know how you do your job every day, how you deal with people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you all, you have no idea what's going to come through the door, and you're able to deal with that. And so I have the utmost respect for both segments, manufacturing and for healthcare. So they all have a place in society, but definitely the healthcare sector has been through a lot, and they come back. They really are everyday heroes.
All right, Deidre. So I'm really interested. Like, I'm sure you've seen some of these TV shows like The Pit, ER, Grey's Anatomy, Scrubs, all these different shows that take place like in a hospital type situation. Is there any that stood out to you that you thought was exceptionally realistic based on your experience, or any art imitating life there?
Yeah, honestly, I don't watch those shows after spending a lot of time in them, so I couldn't really tell you, but I've seen blooper reels and some segments, on social media. I would say they're probably not all that far off, maybe just not as dramatic.
Not as dramatic. Okay. So there's, like you said, there's a lot more downtime, right? There's a lot more like not happening in between, like, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. or whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden you get like a emergency coming in, right? So you just got to be ready at all times. So, God, it's such an interesting job. Let's take it a little bit of a different direction. You have your own coaching consultancy. You do a lot of that in your role as the head of HR. Do people seek you out for coaching at work? Is there like a formal coaching program that you put in place? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I have worked with other coaches to help. So it's kind of twofold, but I did get my certification in executive and leadership coaching. So I have that. I'm proud to have that for the team that I work with. But it's twofold. People will seek me out almost daily just to run something by me. And I love that aspect of my job. I love that. Then there are opportunities for a more formal approach for an internal coach. So I actually have internal clients, if you will, where I work, and I do that all the time. And then also I do that with my coaching business. I have executive coaching clients.
Awesome. And then in terms of maybe a coaching story or something that you've done where you were helping an executive, or that your coaching made an impact, whether it be with your own consultancy or maybe it be in one of the organizations you've worked in. Any stories come to mind?
This just happened, so I'll share it. I had an individual who was looking for a position, and she came to talk to me about it. And she said, I'm really good with X, Y, and Z. I want to advance. What do I need to do? And so as I looked over her resume, I said, well, you don't have a bachelor's degree, and that may limit you going forward. And so we talked about that at length. And, I could tell it was a little defeating to her to hear that. But she thanked me. She was cordial. We continued working together. She didn't get the position that she had applied for because of that education piece. And just about a week ago, I got an email from her, and she said, I wanted to tell you that it didn't feel good in the moment, what you told me, but you were really the only person that ever said that direct to me. And I vowed then that I would never let that be a stumbling block. So I wanted to share with you my bachelor's degree. And she took a picture of it and sent it to me. And that it to me is worth gold. It's just those are the moments that carry me through those bad days.
That's awesome. No, what a great story. It's amazing that, feedback is a gift at the end of the day, especially if your intent is to help the person. A lot of times it's going to be the best thing you can do for them. One of the things that, we talk about at our company is that, when you're a candidate, like she said, like a lot of times you don't get feedback, you get ghosted, you get made up BS about why you didn't get the job. And, I understand why people want to do that. People don't like to say something mean. They want to protect themselves and these different things. But, we go out of our way to seek out feedback when we're working with candidates to give them feedback. In fact, the compliment that I've probably gotten the most throughout my career is when I was recruiting was, telling a candidate, hey, you didn't get it because you didn't get into enough detail on this, or they were a little bit concerned about your leadership aspect here, or there was this answer that they weren't sure about. So they can take it and get better with it. And sometimes
Mhm.
people, never great to hear something that you could have done better, especially if it's true and it's valid. But it's the type of thing like that person that you recommended to is like, you need to hear it. And then if you actually take action against it, it can be one of the best things that happens for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. I do a lot in terms of personal branding. We invite people onto this podcast for personal branding. But you and I talked a little bit more about the good old fashioned kind of personal branding, how you carry yourself at work, how you dress, how you write, how you communicate. I know we have a lot of younger listeners here that are earlier in their career and then maybe trying to figure out a way to stand out, or maybe you're not realizing why they're not getting what they want out of their career so far. Why do you think this is important? And can you think of a time where maybe someone ignored this aspect, and maybe they were brilliant in other ways, but they didn't really achieve their full potential because of that. So I know I asked you a lot there, but can you give me a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually got my certification as an etiquette consultant to teach this as part of my coaching business and at work and with my students. That these are long lost arts that we have lost, and that we just don't even pay attention to anymore. But it sets you apart when you are able to take that feedback. You're able to have conflict resolution skills, problem solving. All of those things are important. But if you come into a room poorly dressed, and by that I mean, you're just not professional looking.
Disheveled, wearing clothes that don't fit, unironed, not, you know, just not dressed to impress. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that signifies that you have thought enough of the person that you're meeting to get ready for them, to be your very best. Saying please and thank you. I tell our new hires every Monday that we now in healthcare, we are competing with the likes of Chick-fil-A based on how nice we are, and they sell chicken. Well, great chicken, but we're saving lives. We are bringing new life into the world, and when we fail to say thank you for choosing us, that sends a different message than if they can go get that at Chick-fil-A and not at a healthcare spot. That's a problem. But that goes with everything. People that are grateful tend to have just a more enjoyable life, but also it signifies that you're willing to, you're thankful, you want to grow. All of those things go into people look at you differently, and they earmark you for bigger things because you demonstrate what they want in higher level leadership. And I've seen that time and again. I've seen people that were brilliant. I can think of somebody right now. They can get everything on their list done. They do it better and faster than anybody. But when you talk to them, their face does not know how happy their heart is. And they don't look approachable, and they don't dress for success every day. And it sends a message that they're really not invested in the full scope of what it takes to be successful, or advanced in their career. And I think it's very self-limiting to just say, oh, that's not important anymore.
Totally agree with you. I think when you show up, right, you're saying something whether you open your mouth or not. You just
Mhm.
want to make sure that you're saying what you want to say, right? Whatever you're trying to say, and what you might actually be saying might be two very different things. So like you said, like how you carry yourself. Here's what I like to say. Take care of the little things so that the focus is on the content of what you say. It is on the focus of your work, but you're doing yourself a disservice and limiting yourself if you think everything else doesn't matter as long as you say the right thing or know the right thing or get the thing done. It's all part of the entire package. And particularly when we get to, the age of AI that we're in right now, I mean, I think it's going to become even more important to have a firm handshake, great eye contact, right? Be dressed well, like good presence, good body language. Like, you announce yourself before you even say a word a lot of the time. So I
No,
think
I
that's
totally agree with everything you're saying, and I try to build that into my coaching packages as well. So
love that.
very important.
Now, if you're wondering, I'm not wearing a sweater because I knew that you were going to talk about the importance of being well dressed, but I am sure glad that I chose to wear one today instead of my typical t-shirt fare. So I
Well,
got
I'm
a little.
wearing denim because I felt like it was going with the vibe of your show. So I think you also have to dress for your audience.
Oh my God, did I mix it up here? I should have. I tricked you, rope a dope here. Should have worn my standard fare. Like I said, a little bit colder in Florida today. I'm not going to complain. 65 degrees, but enough where I could put a sweater on and not be completely sweaty profusely.
Finding the right talent for your team doesn't have to be a struggle. Meet Aon Hire, the world's first hiring experience management platform designed to transform the way you hire. Powered by AI, Aon Hire takes the hassle out of every step in the process. From smart resume analysis to customized interview questions, it saves you time, money, and effort. Plus, with real-time insights from every interview, you can quickly identify top candidates, reduce turnover, and stay on budget. And forget about note-taking, Aon Hire takes care of that for you. Ready to revolutionize your hiring process? Visit aonhire.com and get started today.
Let's talk hiring. Let's talk talent. That's both of our passions. I'm super
Yeah.
interested to hear from you on this subject. So, core hiring philosophy. Do you have one for people that you want to bring on your team?
I do. Humble, hungry, and smart. And that is adopted from the Ideal Team Player, Patrick Lencioni's book. I love that book, and I love the format of humble, hungry, and smart. If you have a big ego and you're arrogant, that's a turnoff. If you are not self-motivated, and you're not willing to put in the work, so if you're not hungry, and smart is going to be about that emotional intelligence piece. So that's over the last probably 4 to 5 years, I've really honed in on asking questions that share those traits to help me determine if they have those traits.
Let's talk about this. And you're not the first person to bring up Patrick Lencioni. That's a very famous book and a very famous approach. What questions do you ask to determine hungry, humble?
Tell me about a time that you had a conflict with your boss. Sometimes it's easy to have a conflict with a subordinate and you just, shrug it off and say, okay, it's my way or the highway. But when you dig into some of those specifics, like if you can handle a conflict with your boss and you can do it and you kept your job, then you probably have a good level of being humble and having good people smarts. Share a time with me that something didn't go your way. What did you do to improve that? Have you ever terminated a high performer? High performers aren't, if they have bad behavior or bad communication, they're not a high performer. And so those questions help me determine, do they have enough self-awareness about all of those things that they would fit that mode or that model for me.
Love that. Really, really good stuff. What about a memorable interview experience? If I ask you about one, good, bad, indifferent, you don't got to name names, but does any memorable interview experiences come to mind?
Oh, I've got several, but one that really stands out is it was the first VP of HR job that I was interviewing for, and it was a panel interview of directors, and there were about 15 people in the room, and I could tell as I sat at the table that they really hadn't done any homework and they didn't have a strategy. And so it was a little awkward at first. And so I said, and I could also tell that they were probably hesitant to ask me a question that they thought might be inappropriate. So I said, hey, if you don't mind, I could get started and I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and I will be politically correct and tell me all of the things I know you're not allowed to ask me. How's that? And it broke the ice. They laughed and it lessened some of the angst. But, I told them I was married. I had a child. So people are afraid to ask those things, but that's really what they want to know. And so I gave them that permission. And it's memorable because about 5 years after that, somebody mentioned the Diedre interview. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, when you started, you told us the politically correct version. And so I thought, well, I now have a brand, so that's okay. But it stuck with them. They thought it was, they enjoyed that I was that open with them.
I love that. There's a good lesson in there too for people that are interviewing right now and are wondering, how do I put on my best self? Sometimes it's just being authentic and speaking from the heart like you do. What about when it comes to a realistic job preview of what it's like to work with you? What do you do in an interview to help somebody understand? I mean, it's not all puppy dogs and lollipops. How do you paint for them what they're walking into to make sure that they're making a good decision too?
Well, I do think when I talk about the pace of the job, and I also tell them exactly about me, and give them the permission, go talk to my team. They're going to tell you the good, bad, and ugly, and I'm going to tell you the good, bad, and ugly of me and of this position. But you still can't always describe the busyness of a job or the pace until they're in it. So I'm a big believer, number one, just being completely authentic in the interview and sending them the message about my expectations. But also, I want to do a job preview or a job shadow. I think that is really important because just a few hours can help people say yes or no. And I've had people say, I don't think this is for me. I've also had people that have gone through that and they say, yes, it's for me. And then they still say, oh, I had no idea how busy this place was. So I'm a big believer in the job preview and just being open about the demands of the job. HR is very hard some days. And people that haven't been in it a long time like I have, I mean, it's still hard for me. But people that aren't, used to the work never ending, especially in healthcare, it can be very challenging. So I try to prepare them as much as I can. And if I don't scare them off too bad, then, they'll probably get the job.
I love that. What about when you miss? Because we all miss,
Yeah.
right? Is there a theme that you can think of or something that you've learned over time as you continue to interview that you look back and you reflect and you're like, I was making this mistake? Anything come to mind when I say that?
Yeah, I look at the behavioral questions that I asked. And then I also weigh, did I do a job preview, job shadow? Um, and there was one in particular that I felt like if we had had lunch with this candidate, and I try to build in a lunchtime now with all of our candidates, especially that work for me, because I think food is a great way to let your hair down and maybe be a little relaxed. And so when you're eating, you're all eating together, there are behaviors that come out, or maybe words that make me second guess would I have hired them if I had known this before. And there was one in particular, we had a welcome lunch after we had hired this individual and demonstrated some little concerning behavior. And at that point, they had been hired, and I really couldn't do anything about it. But I learned from that going forward, I wanted to have some type of a job shadow where food was involved to really get some insight. And I have abstained from making offers based on some of their behaviors during the lunchtime event.
Oof, I like that.
Yeah.
Be on the lookout with Lunch with Deidre. I
I
like
should do
that.
I should do my own podcast and call
Hey,
it
Lunch with Deidre. We competing podcast. Let's go. Now here's what I would say. I mean, it's similar in an interview situation where, you take out the spouse to a dinner or you go to a lunch, and you're right. I mean, there's just a lot of cues that you can learn about somebody, right? In
Yeah.
a situation like that. And you're right. Food does tend to bring out, I guess the best or the worst of us in some ways, right? And your ability to handle that, especially if there's somebody that's going to be, customer facing and things like that. I mean, that's a good sign of how they'll act and operate, with patients, with customers and things like that. So I think that's a really, really good call out by you. All right, let's dive into a couple of other fun things real quick. So
Okay.
if I asked you for a good book you read recently that you'd recommend, any come to mind?
Yes, I just finished Unoffendable.
Ooh, tell me about it.
It's by Brant Hansen. And I read it, and then I also got the audio version, and his voice just makes it that much better.
What's it about?
Well, it's just talking about how offended people are, just looking to be offended. And I think that's so true. And it's talking about, the person that cut you off in traffic. Maybe they're heading to the hospital. Maybe it's the last minute that they're going to see their father. Or maybe they just got a sick kid. Or maybe they just got divorced. We have no idea what people are thinking. But instead of trying to control them, we need to look at ourselves. And I really, really enjoyed that. It's an older book, and I had meant to read it long before now, but something just popped back up, and I thought, ooh, I want to read that. And I think so much of that is about self-control as opposed to the other person. So it's really a good book.
Yeah, I got to check that one out. We all would be doing a lot better if we gave each other the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
Last question, then we're going to move to our famous lightning round.
Yes.
If you had some advice that you'd give 20-year-old Deidre that you didn't know then, but that you know now, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, so many things. And I tell my students this, so I think I would probably say don't freak out. It's all going to work out. Just don't freak out.
Do you
You're
have a
gonna be
moment where you
okay.
remember being younger and you were over stressing or over anxious about a decision or something that happened?
Just, oh my gosh, this is going to be career ending. I made this mistake. And in the scheme of things, if you ask yourself, will this matter 5 years from now? Will this impact my career 5 years from now? And more than likely, I'm not even going to remember those days. At 25, did I think that? And whatever it was, it didn't limit me. It didn't impact me. But as long as I'm still learning, and I think that would probably be a follow-up advice to myself, don't stop learning.
Don't stop learning. I like that. Yeah. And listen, I think the further we get away from high school, where high school it's the worst, like you think like everything is like the be all end all, and then you mature to your 20s, and then you get into your job. And to your point, like it's not that serious. Like most things are recoverable. Most things are not one-way doors. Most things you just had a bad day, a bad situation, bad circumstance. A lot of times those are the circumstances that teach you the most about yourself and actually set you on a path that ends up becoming the right one. So totally with you on that. Great advice. All right. Let's do some lightning round things. I'm gonna ask you about, now you're from Kentucky, right?
Yes. Can you see my?
I see it right there.
Okay.
What part? What city?
Ashland, Kentucky.
Ashland, Kentucky. All right, I'm gonna come back to that. Hold on. Let's
Okay.
start here though.
All right.
You might be one of the more certified people I've ever met. Certified leadership coach, certified trainer, crucial learning, certified executive coach, quality service for healthcare professionals, senior professional HR certification. Which certification did you get the most use out of on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, by far the PHR. That was the lower level, but the SPHR is a senior level. But I refer back to things that I learned at the PHR level every day. And those two exams were by far the hardest that I've ever taken.
Those studying for the PHR, be ready, be on the lookout. All right. I love going through LinkedIn's and just like picking out things. Kentucky Colonel? What is that honor and award?
Oh gosh, that's my favorite thing to talk about. That is the highest honor bestowed upon a citizen by the governor. And it is a philanthropic organization where you have to be nominated by another colonel. And you only get that if you have made significant contributions to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And the way that I got that, I was I lived in Winchester for a few years, and I was part of Leadership Winchester, and got to work on a promotional video for our little town, and ended up going to the Capitol and was given the colonelhood, if you will. And so that's something that people always ask me. They think I'm a military colonel, which I think is funny. But yeah, everywhere I go, I want to.
I thought it had something to do with Colonel Sanders. I love that. I love the philanthropy of it.
Somebody asked me in an interview one time, they said, your resume says you're a colonel. And I said, well, it's not military. And then we started talking about that. And they said, now I'm hungry for chicken all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, I'm coming back to chicken. We'll get there. Etiquette enthusiast, tell me one small etiquette tip that you think makes a big difference.
I think the handshake.
Okay. Even for a female and a male, both.
Yes.
Handshake. Okay. What's your rules on a handshake?
Well, you can't, for the men, don't break the other person's hand, male.
Yeah. What is it
female.
with? I mean, some of these guys who are trying to like alpha the hell out of everything, and they're coming in and just, it's like, dude, like relax, like come on, calm down. Like we don't need that right now. But go ahead.
And for females, don't have a cold dead fish hand.
Never,
like
yeah.
have it structured. Make sure your thumbs meet. And have a good solid handshake. Look somebody in the eye and introduce yourself.
I can't wait to meet in person. I'm going to give you the handshake of all time. It's going to be so good. I'm going to be so thoughtful about it. Might be a little anxious leading up to it. I want to make sure I get it right. Road trip aficionado.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite snack on a road trip?
Oh, jalapeno Cheetos.
Oof, good choice. What about favorite road trip you've taken?
Probably, gosh, we've done so many. My husband and I have been through 39 states. So we've driven through a lot of states. Probably we did a Southern States tour. We left Kentucky, went to Memphis, and traveled all through the Deep South. And it was phenomenal with the history of the places we got to visit. So I absolutely love that. But I love all of them, but that's probably a memorable one.
I got to tell you, I hate to say this. I live in there. I grew up in Arizona. I made the drive to Florida a couple different times, right? When I moved here. worst road trip is driving through Texas.
Oh, I know.
So flat, so like, and it all looks the same, and it seems like it's never ending. I mean, going from end to end on that state.
And I've done that. We've
Good
done that.
Lord. Good Lord. That is
Mhm.
not a fun drive. Okay. Here's what we're going to do now. Last part of the lightning round. Thank you for playing along. Now we're going to ask you, you've grown up in Ashland, Kentucky. You're in Houston, Texas. I'm going to ask you some things. You tell me where it's better. Okay.
Okay.
Better Southern food.
Kentucky.
Okay. What's your favorite Southern food?
Well, honestly, it's my mother's fried chicken, but gosh. Yeah, fried chicken.
Okay. Original or extra crispy?
Original.
Gotta go original. Breast or thigh?
Thigh.
Okay. I'm just asking. Hey, listen, I'm checking in. Okay. Nicer people, Houston or Kentucky?
Oh, Kentucky.
Okay. University of Louisville or University of Kentucky?
Oh, University of Kentucky.
A Wildcat?
I'm definitely a Wildcat, but I will say this. I'm an odd Kentuckian because I will always root for any team in Kentucky as long if they're not playing Kentucky, UK.
Yeah, UK. Okay.
Mhm.
Have you been to some games at UK? At Rupp?
Oh, yeah, Rep Arena. Mhm.
Okay. I love
Yeah.
that. Last question. Mint juleps at the Kentucky Derby? You're drinking one or no?
I'm a teetotaler, so I would abstain from that.
You'd
But
abstain,
I
but you're
hear
going to wear a
it's
nice fancy hat, right?
oh yeah, definitely. I've definitely got my hat.
You got your hat. Have you ever been to the Kentucky Derby?
Honestly, no, and I'm ashamed to say that. But here's the thing: before you leave your state, make sure that you get all of the high spots because I've done that. We left there before I got to do everything because I figured I would always live there. So when we moved to Texas, we made sure that we toured all of Texas before we had to move out. But I'm still here, so we've got other states to see.
It's like people ask me if I've never been to the Grand Canyon, living in Arizona. And then
Have
weather.
you?
Of course, many times. Many
Okay,
times.
good. The weather, while I don't miss the cold weather in Kentucky, I do miss seasons. So,
I don't know, Houston. I don't know if she's long for you. That's all Kentucky down the list. Check mark, check mark, check mark.
but I'll tell you, my family is here. My daughter and my husband are here. So,
Home is where the heart is. Home is where the family is. I love that. Here, we covered a lot today. Personal
Yeah.
branding, healthcare, manufacturing, good books, fried chicken, weather. We did it all. We covered a lot of bases. I really appreciate you coming on. I hope you had a good time. I really enjoyed talking to you.
it was a blast. Thank you, Oz. It's been great.
All right. Have a good one. See you soon.
Too. Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.